welcome to the SVG-TV news for Monday, November 1st. I'm Khalil Kato with the details. After almost a year away from the classroom due to the COVID-19 pandemic, a number of students across SVG returned to school today for face-to-face classes. As we hear in this report by Larissa Pugsley-Kidd, the students and their teachers were happy to return to the physical classroom.
19 primary schools and 7 secondary schools were listed to return to full face-to-face on-site classroom teaching as of today, Monday, November 1st, 2021. The Kalioquah Anglican School is one of the primary schools listed to return to on-site face-to-face teaching. However, the principal of the school, Dr. Corcel Smith, said that they are instead engaged in a blended approach.
We just settled in this morning and we have 4 classes in this big building. We spread them out to the building. So there's some days when some children come and the other days when we have like 4 classes, that is 8 classrooms per day.
Health guidelines are expected to be strictly adhered to at all schools which have reopened for face-to-face instructions. Some of the parents who accompany their children on the first day back to physical school in almost a year since the Christmas break of December 2020 said they are happy to see school reopened and that it is their hope that measures are in place to ensure that the health guidelines or protocols are maintained for the safety of everyone.
It was a bit difficult, but it turned out okay. I'm a little disappointed that I didn't get to go in to see where he's sitting and everything, but everything went well so far.
Just on the outskirts of Capital Kingston on the leeward side, we caught up with a teacher at the Kittel's government who, along with her 2 boys, were out on the road early waiting for transportation to take them to school.
I'm ready to go back out. I would have been fully vaccinated. So all I want to do is make sure that, my kids are, of course I will practice the safety measures and everything. But they too are anxious to go back out. They have been home for so long.
The intermediate high school is also engaged in blended learning. Today it was face-to-face teaching for the first farmers who said they waited for this day for a long time.
It was exciting. I wanted to meet my teachers and learn a little bit more.
I am very happy that numbers cannot be spelled. I waited for this from primary school and now look at where I am.
Kinda scared, but I'm still happy. I reached as far as I can be in this.
And the teachers are nice and they help me to learn.
And the school is a nice school forever.
The teachers of the intermediate high school expressed relief that students can again interact with each other physically while maintaining the health protocols, noting that the approach taken has made it easier for teaching and learning.
I'm happy to see my students for the first time, well, face-to-face that is, for the first time. I recognize that online, while I was teaching online, there were some students who were struggling and I couldn't get them. Like they would shy away from turning on their cameras, they would shy away from responding, and I know that, that's a challenge within itself.
The numbers in the classroom, they're not large. They're not huge numbers. So that is a plus. And in the classes, you have about 15 students, 16 students thereabout.
As the Ministry of Education moves forward with the phased reopening for the full reopening of schools island-wide, unvaccinated teachers are asked to get vaccinated or they will have to produce a PCR test every 2 weeks, at least in the first instance, because come November 19th, as frontline workers, they are expected to show proof of vaccination unless they have received an exemption by the relevant authorities. For SVG-TV News, Larissa Pugsley-Kidd.
Minister of Education Curtis King on NBC Radio on Saturday reiterated the importance of face-to-face classes. He highlighted some of the challenges that children faced during the online instructions.
Online instruction, despite the valiant effort being made by some teachers, it is not perfect. It is not a great substitute for face-to-face instruction. And there's no doubt whatever in my mind. And I mean, all the research have shown that our students are suffering great learning loss. And the earlier we have them return to school physically, it would be the better, not just for the system now, but for the future too. And perhaps we would not really understand the great loss that these students are facing are experiencing until sometime down the road. Probably would be too late. And this is despite the fact that we are making that effort also to recover some of that learning loss. I want to make the point that we just had the release of the CXCM suite of exams, well, the last three basically, because we had the CPA. But you would hear people saying it. It was so crucial that we had some face-to-face interaction with all the students. Those at the primary level, those at the secondary level, those at Cape, that allow them to enhance their own performances.
Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Education, Michael Burke, also noted the importance of face-to-face instructions, noting that it will go a long way towards students' development.
Is this particularly at the entry and the exit levels? So we're looking at the grade Ks, we're looking at the grade 6, we're looking at the Form 1s, we're looking at the Form 5s. At these levels, the number of face-to-face engagement, the more frequent that their face-to-face engagement would be of tremendous benefit for these students. I have a little boy and I see him online and I see how easily distracted he becomes. And I see teachers making an effort. They're trying their utmost best to keep the students engaged, and it is difficult. Students in the home environment, at times they are not supervised, they're unsupervised because there's no one there to supervise them. And we can't leave this up to an elder sibling because an elder sibling may be similarly engaged in online instruction. So it is important that we have face-to-face engagement, but we don't want to be perceived as being reckless in our desire to have face-to-face engagement. That's why there's a systematic approach that is adopted.
This country recorded 2 more COVID-19 deaths, bringing the death toll from the viral illness to 68. Over the weekend, the National Emergency Management Organization, NEMO, reported that an unvaccinated 76-year-old male who tested positive for COVID-19 on October 29th died on the same day. Yesterday, the 68th COVID-19 death was recorded, that of a 49-year-old male who tested positive on October 17th. He was also unvaccinated. Meanwhile, NEMO said 26 new positive cases were reported from 231 samples collected on Thursday, October 28th, resulting in a positivity rate of 11.3%. 18 new rapid antigen positive results were also reported from that day from flu clinics. On Friday, 18 positive cases were reported from 211 samples collected, resulting in a positivity rate of 8.5%. 21 new rapid antigen positive results were reported from flu clinics. NEMO says there are currently 8 patients admitted for COVID-19 at the Argyle Isolation Facility. All are unvaccinated. 30 patients have been admitted to the COVID-19 wards at the Milton Cato Memorial Hospital. 26 of these are unvaccinated, 2 are partially vaccinated, and 2 are fully vaccinated. 1,819 cases are currently active, and 68 persons with COVID-19 have died. 4,995 cases of the virus and 3,108 recoveries have been recorded in SVG since March 2020. Vaccinated persons entering SVG no longer have to quarantine in an approved hotel or guest house. This took effect on Saturday as the COVID-19 task force revised the entry protocols for travelers. Previously, vaccinated persons had to mandatorily quarantine for 48 hours at their own expense at a hotel provided by the Ministries of Health and Tourism. Speaking on the matter on SVG-TV's Viewpoint program last evening, Health Promotions Officer Shanika John said that entry protocols still apply except for mandatory quarantine for those who are fully vaccinated.
The fully vaccinated, you have to be fully vaccinated for at least 2 weeks prior to your travel date.
Okay.
So even if you got your last dose or your first dose of the vaccine yesterday and your next travel is tomorrow, you're not exempted from that requirement because of the time frame. So that's also important to consider. If you're not vaccinated, then you would fall in what is called a high risk, medium risk, and a low risk. And that would raise some quarantine measures depending on where you're coming from. So if you are coming from a high risk country and you're fully vaccinated, medium risk or low risk, you do not get to quarantine. You're still required to come with a test. And I know a lot of persons have been.
John explained, however, that in some instances, vaccinated travelers entering SVG still have to quarantine.
A lot of persons have been asking about the May in our protocol may be tested, may be quarantined. And that's really at the discretion of the port health officers at the time of the assessment. It doesn't mean that you come in at the airport, at our seaports, and you just walk free. You're still being assessed by our officers, and if there's any reason in particular that they may feel that it's warrant a quarantine period or a testing period, those measures would apply.
The revision of the entry protocols comes at a time when the tourist season commences, and according to John, there are specific protocols in place for the tourism sector.
Officer Dr. Simon Kizabich would have mentioned that even though you would see that the cases are going down and our positivity rate is also trending downwards, it does not put us in a very relaxed state, especially because we are going into opening up for the tourism season. We're also going into Christmas, which is also a very festive time as well. So we really need to continue to stay on our guard. We have over 60 persons who have died from COVID-19 in St. Vincent so far, all of which are unvaccinated. For the last couple of months or so, we've been working with the Ministry of Tourism, Minister and his team, in terms of making sure that we have specific protocols and guidelines in place for those cruise ship passengers who are coming in via sea and the necessary requirements that are required at different ports.
And the first cruise call to Port Kingstown for the season is expected next Thursday, November 11th. Minister of Tourism Carlos James said that cruise ships have been making calls to the Grenadines since August, and there is high anticipation for the arrival of the first ship to Port Kingstown in almost a year.
For instance, the first cruise call to St. Vincent and the Grenadines for over a year with the Seabourn Odyssey, and we did this since in August. So we've been having bi-weekly calls to Beckway, Port Elizabeth. We've been having trial run in relation to that, to see what it is like to operate within what we considered a cruise tourism bubble to facilitate cruise passengers who are returning to our destination. Our second call came into Mairo just 2 days ago, I think on Friday. We had the second call, a smaller vessel as well, testing the waters to see how this is going to work in the transition from a general, open sort of season to one that is a bit more restricted in terms of the bubble concept. And we're hoping by the 11th of November to see our first call to Port Kingstown. We're hoping to have the Britannia here. And of course, we've been putting measures in place, having several stakeholder engagements to ensure that we've been working to realize this very difficult task, but to get things done.
James said that tourists are booking SVG as a destination based on the protocols. He said there are also cruise bubbles which are made to accommodate only vaccinated persons.
And lounge on the beach chairs. Unfortunately, at this time, we cannot allow them to do that, because one of the things is mixing the general population with those who are coming in by cruise, and in the whole bubble concept. And they themselves are not feeling 100% safe coming to destinations to be mixing with general population where there's a low uptick in the vaccination. So we're here talking about how we prepared for a tourism season and our recovery and so on. At the end of the season, you will see that the numbers for St. Vincent, though they will improve over last year, may be lower than every other island who has put the measures in place to deal with vaccination and all of these things.
Meanwhile, the tourism minister stressed the importance of safety and urged citizens to stay on guard to keep the rate of COVID-19 infections down.
We put the necessary measures in place to have a very safe, and the key word here is safe, in the general welfare and health of our general population and those who are visiting, and a very safe and productive season. And I want to encourage persons to also be on the alert, adhere to the protocols, the health protocols that are in place. Let us not let our guards down as it relates to that, and we have to work continuously and relentlessly to ensure that we have a very safe season. But I'm looking forward optimistically for beyond the season, and as I said earlier, in a holistic way, building capacity, training and the provision of services, improvements and infrastructural works across all of our existing sites, and potentially new sites which will be added. We have all of these things we're hoping to see.
President of the SVG Hotel Association, Kim Halbish, says they are hoping to see improvements in the industry, especially with room stock. International flights are almost back to normal, and according to Halbich, they are working with all partners and stakeholders for a good season.
Association continue to work with the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Tourism and the authority to bring back tourism safely, and we look forward to continuing our partnerships. We continue to, the association continue our drive to make our staff and members fully aware of the importance of getting vaccinated. We continue to do special workshops where our staff can ask questions, speak to doctors, speak to professionals if they have any questions as we work to bring back the industry.
Halbich noted that the hotel industry took a hard hit from the pandemic as some operators were forced to close their doors and a number of staff were laid off. She said that the subsidy offered by the government has ended and that they are now looking forward to see what changes may take place.
Well, the subsidy is no longer in place, so that was finished maybe 2 months ago. And some of the hotels, like myself, I opted to do a week on, week off. Right. So I did not lay off anybody, so I made sure everybody had something coming in, as well as the subsidy. Some hotels opted to lay off, and they will, I don't think they will be able to bring them on until numbers start to increase, until some persons were able to bring them back on when we were doing the transitioning. So it will be interesting to see what happens, as it just finished yesterday.
Several varieties of trees have been planted in the Turnal plot at Rabaka as efforts to reforest the area got underway over the weekend following the devastation caused by the explosions of the La Soufrière volcano. The replanting process, which took place on Friday, formed part of activities to mark United Nations Day. UN Resident Coordinator for Barbados and the Eastern Caribbean, Didier Tribuc, planted the first tree, a yellow pui. Tribuc shared the moment with Deputy Prime Minister Montgomery Daniel and Minister of Agriculture Soboto Caesar and other UN team members and forestry personnel. Tribuc said the tree planting ceremony rebuilds hope in the aftermath of the eruption of La Soufrière, which has significantly impacted lives and infrastructure and destroyed crops. He applauded this country's government for its commitment to climate change, noting that the UN will give additional finances to small islands so that they can adapt to climate change. Director of Forestry of the Forestry Department, Fitzgerald Providence, said the Turnal plot at Rabaka has always been dedicated to conservation, and his department plans to reforest the entire area. According to Providence, the majority of trees planted last Friday were blue mahos. Meanwhile, Minister of Agriculture Soboto Caesar said the celebration of UN Day comes at a time of overwhelming challenges in St. Vincent and the Grenadines and around the world. He commended the UN for its hard work over the years, adding that the young people of SVG, the region and the world are the beneficiaries of this hard work. Deputy Prime Minister Montgomery Daniel described UN Day as a great day and expressed his happiness that the UN resident coordinator and his team visited SVG to celebrate the day. The tree planting ceremony saw participation from other UN bodies in the country, including the Food and Agricultural Organization, FAO, United Nations Development Program, UNDP, International Organization for Migration, and country coordinator Lafleur Kwame. The National Emergency Management Organization, NEMO, will join the UN in observing World Tsunami Awareness Day this Friday, November 5th. Deputy Director of NEMO, Kenson Stoddard, said a week of activities is usually held annually to commemorate the day. However, like last year, the activities were scaled down or held virtually due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and the same will apply this year. The focus of World Tsunami Awareness Day 2021 is on the target of the Sendai 7 campaign, which aims to substantially enhance international cooperation to developing countries through adequate and sustainable support to complement their national actions for implementation of the present framework by 2030.
We had a number of things planned. We often have community engagement, community meetings. We often produce local material for public consumption, whether it be videos. I know a lot of persons might be familiar with the video with the musicians that we had. and it reinforces the message of the signs and so on. This year, we want to really ramp up a lot of our messaging and public education. So you could look out on the NEMO page. We would be doing a lot of promo on tsunamis. What is the science of tsunamis? How do they originate? What are the impacts? How can you prepare? What signs can you look for? And so on.
A tsunami is a series of enormous waves usually caused by earthquakes or volcanic eruptions occurring below or near the ocean, and started to use the opportunity to further explain why it's important to bring awareness on tsunamis to the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Considered the second or third most active tectonically active area across the globe. And as a consequence, there's a real possibility for us to have tsunamis. And so I know we prepared, we just gone through preparing, responding to a volcanic eruption. We go through preparations and so on for hurricanes every year. And but we cannot negate or we cannot forget about other hazards. And NEMO and its mandate, we have implemented what we call a CDM policy. And what do we mean by that? We really want to consider all hazards approach, all hazards, and we want to look at all people and all phases of the disaster management cycle. So when we look at that, why we want to do tsunamis, like all other hazards, we really want to zoom in and do a lot more preparatory work, do a lot more planning for other emergencies that can occur.
Stoddard said NEMO is implementing a national tsunami program which seeks to ensure that all coastal communities in SVG are tsunami ready.
We're partnered with UNESCO IOC, that's the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission, and they have been linking with the National Oceanic NOAA in the US, and their mandate is to improve awareness and preparedness for tsunamis and other oceanic threats or coastal threats across the region. So we are under the guidance of the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center, and of course within that we have our own Caribbean Tsunami Information Center. And so under UNESCO and the IOC, we have been implementing a program called the Tsunami Ready Communities Project.
On December 22nd, 2015, the UN General Assembly designated November 5th as World Tsunami Awareness Day by its resolution, calling on countries and international bodies to raise tsunami awareness and share innovative actions. In police news, the police have arrested and charged Osborne Jack, a 35-year-old student of Camden Park, with a breach of protection order. The accused allegedly unlawfully breached the protection order FC-16 of 2021, an order duly made by the president of the family court at the Leeward Bus Terminal on October 15th. Jack is expected to appear before the Serious Offences Court to answer the charge. Meanwhile, police have also arrested and charged Dante Boye, an unemployed 21-year-old of Diamonds Village, with the offenses of assault, causing bodily harm, resisting arrest, and damage to property. The accused allegedly assaulted Eddie Warren, a police officer, by scraping him about his body, causing actual bodily harm, resisting the arrest of PC Warren by pushing him in his chest, him being a police officer acting in the due execution of his duty, for without lawful excuse, damaged one grey police regulation shirt, the property of the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The incident occurred in Diamonds on Friday. Boye is expected to appear before the Serious Offences Court to answer the charges.